Today on NewsWatch, sending a warning, Al-Qaeda issues a new threat to the United States. We'll tell you what the terror group is promising now. Plus, Standing with Israel will break down the numbers that show most Christians support a Jewish state. And today, Texans vote on a controversial gay rights ordinance. Hear what the new measure could mean for Christians in the Lone Star State. Thanks so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. A new audio recording from Al-Qaeda's leader threatens Americans with another attack. It also calls on jihadists worldwide, including members of ISIS, to join with the terror group to drive foreign forces from Syria. Gary Lane is on this story.
The U.S. Deputy Secretary of State announced an expanded effort against ISIS in Syria.
We are intensifying our efforts on all fronts
by supporting anti-Syrian rebels and pursuing diplomatic efforts to end the war. And now U.S. boots on the ground. American special forces, perhaps 50 or more, will be helping the Kurds in northern Syria. The Obama administration insists they're in Syria to act as advisors and trainers.
As it relates to their mission, this is an important thing for the American people to understand. These forces do not have a combat mission.
Some U.S. politicians have criticized the move. On Fox News Sunday, Senator Lindsey Graham said it shows Obama is not all in.
It is a sign of weakness to ISIL. They've sized Obama up and they think he's weak. And to our allies, sending 50 troops means that we're not committed to destroying ISIL. And if we're not committed to destroying ISIL, they will attack us here.
But the Russians do seem to be all in. So far, their bombing campaign has helped the Assad regime recapture about 5% of Syrian government territory. All of this has led to new comments from al-Qaeda's number one in command, Ayman al-Zawahiri. He's calling on Muslims to unify to drive the foreigners from Syria and the Middle East. In a new audio recording, Zawahiri said, quote, "The Americans, Russians, Iranians, Alawites, and Hezbollah are coordinating their war against us. Are we not capable of stopping the fighting among ourselves so we can direct all our efforts against them?" That means unifying with ISIS, a group al-Zawahiri has denounced, criticizing its self-proclaimed caliphate and caliph. There's an old saying in the Middle East, me and my cousin against one another. We fight one another, but me and my cousin against all the others. So when there is a common enemy, they will go after that common enemy. Al-Zawahiri also threatened another attack on America's heartland, and he praised the recent killing of Jews at Jerusalem's Temple Mount. And ISIS has released a new anti-Semitic video in the Hebrew language, threatening jihad against Israel. It refers to Jews as the children of monkeys and apes, and says the Islamic State will continue until it, quote, eradicates this disease from the world. Gary Lane, CBN News.
Israeli forces raided a Palestinian radio station it says was inciting violence in the West Bank. The military entered the Al-Haraya station in Hebron and confiscated equipment that was being used to call for attacks against Israelis. 11 Israelis have been killed by Palestinians in recent weeks, mostly in stabbing attacks. The military says Al-Haraya was encouraged the stabbings and glorified the attackers. About 70 Palestinians have also died in recent violence. The Obama administration's relationship with Israel may be extremely strained, but poll after poll shows a large majority of Americans still support the Jewish state, and none more so than Bible-believing Christians. As Eric Stackelbeck reports, thousands of believers met recently in San Antonio to voice their support for Israel.
Over the past month, Palestinian terrorists have carried out a wave of deadly attacks against Israeli men, women, and children. Meanwhile, Iranian forces advance in Syria, near Israel's doorstep, and they now have the Russian bear in their corner. While enemies of Israel may be on the move, so are its friends. Thousands turned out in force recently, deep in the heart of Texas, to stand with Israel and the Jewish people. This is the 34th consecutive year that Pastor John Hagee has held a night to honor Israel here at Cornerstone Church. And this year, with the Iran nuclear deal at the forefront, the stakes could not be higher.
Iran will use a nuclear bomb against Israel, and they will use it against America, and America is helping make it happen, and every American should be outraged by this incident.
South Carolina Senator Tim Scott echoed Hagee's strong criticism of the Iran nuclear deal.
And in year 5 of the deal, the arms embargo is lifted. Year 8, they get ballistic missiles. And in year 10, they have a straight path to a nuclear weapon. That is not a deal.
Hagee also hit Palestinian Authority Chairman Mahmoud Abbas for his incitement of what's being called a Palestinian stabbing intifada that has so far claimed at least 10 Israeli lives.
What should America do to send a message to the Palestinians and Mr. Abbas, the president? Shut off all foreign aid to the Palestinians immediately and permanently. Send a letter to them and to the Iranians that any attack against Israel would be considered an attack on the United States of America.
While the message about the gathering threats was sobering, the event was anything but downbeat. It was a celebration and acknowledgement of God's covenant with Israel and the Jewish people.
An opportunity for Jews and Christians to come together in solidarity and focus not on those things that divide us, but on what we share.
That includes the Old Testament. Senator Scott said it contains a message for America regarding Israel.
A part of the plan that God has for this amazing nation can be found in Psalms 122:6. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Ha! Woo! And those who do shall prosper.
John Hagee Ministries closed the night to honor Israel by awarding $3.2 million in donations to Israeli and Jewish charities, plus an ambulance. Over the years, the ministry has raised some $95 million for Israel. From Cornerstone Church in San Antonio, Eric Stakelbeck, CBN News.
The heavily debated Keystone oil pipeline from Canada to the U.S. Gulf Coast has hit yet another snag. The company behind the project has asked the State Department to pause its review. TransCanada says a suspension would be appropriate while it worked with Nebraska authorities for approval of its preferred route through the state. The request for the delay comes before the Obama administration's widely expected rejection of the project. The proposal has suffered for the last 7 years amid debates over climate change and energy security. The third season of enrollment in Obamacare has started, and along with it comes much higher prices. That's because younger people are avoiding buying insurance, many of them thinking they simply don't need it or they simply cannot afford it. So not having their money coming into the system is one reason for prices for insurance going up for older enrollees. The complicated structure of the law itself is another reason prices are rising. President Obama regards Obamacare as his signature domestic achievement, but he'll leave something else behind as well, a national debt that is nearly doubled just as he leaves the White House. The Washington Times report the total debt stood at $10.6 trillion when the president took office and will hit $20 trillion as his term ends in 2017. And that number is going to go higher since the caps on spending known as sequestration have now been abandoned. America is becoming less religious. A new survey by the Pew Research Center finds the number of U.S. adults who say they believe in God, pray daily, and regularly go to church or other religious services has declined in recent years. But that change is mainly due to a growing minority with no religious affiliation. 23% of Americans say they don't belong to any organized religion, while 77% still affiliate with a particular faith. The commitment of those with religious affiliation has remained stable by most measures. An Arizona high school is appealing a referee's decision to eject a football player who gave thanks to God after scoring a touchdown. Desert Demons running back Pedro Bandana says he always grabs his face mask, points to the sky, and looks up after scoring.
I just thank God for all the power that He's given me to play the game, and I just give the glory to Him.
The referee called it excessive celebration and threw him out of the game. He believed Banda was rubbing it in the other team's face, especially since the 17-year-old had gotten into an argument with an opposing player earlier in the game. An ejection is an automatic one-game suspension, which means Banda could miss the next game, his team's first playoff appearance in 25 years. The school is asking the Arizona Interscholastic Association to overturn the ruling. The decision is expected later today. Check back with CBNNews.com throughout the day for updates. Coming up, Houston voters head to the polls today to vote on a controversial ordinance that would allow transgendered men to use women's restrooms. We'll break down the legislation. It has been called the last stronghold. Houston, Texas is the only major American city without a gay rights ordinance that threatens religious liberty. Today, voters in that city will cast their ballots on the measure. Heather Sells traveled to Houston to find out what's at stake, especially for Christians.
This is a moral issue, and if the body of Christ does not vote and speak out, we are gone in the 21st century.
Dr. Ed Young and other Houston pastors are urging Christian voters to defeat an LGBT ordinance that would undermine religious liberty. The city's lesbian mayor says it's all about non-discrimination, but the pastors say not so.
We are being discriminated against in our judgment, not the other way around.
It's saying we're doing this to stop discrimination. We're doing this to help all sorts of people. But inside of this ordinance, this is the thing, inside this ordinance, there's a big lie, there's a danger.
The danger, no protection for people of faith because sexual liberty would trump religious liberty. First Amendment scholar Robin Fretwell Wilson explains.
That baker is going to have to bake a cake for the same-sex couple.
It's a troubling prospect for Christian wedding vendors here, like Baker Jesus Guerrero.
Feel comfortable doing something, we shouldn't be forced to have, to make a wedding cake that we're not comfortable with.
Photographer David Postma also doesn't want to work a gay ceremony because of his biblical beliefs on marriage. He fears a lawsuit and has begun to refocus his business.
We have already started backing out of the wedding market. I don't advertise weddings at this point.
Other business owners oppose the ordinance because of its language on gender identity. It would permit men and women to use whatever public bathroom they choose. Ed Hendy owns a high-end steakhouse and says Houston did a poor job writing the law.
It imposes criminal fines and punishments on me, the business owner, if I don't allow a person of one gender to go into the other person's bathroom.
The so-called bathroom issue has galvanized Houston's faith community. That, plus religious liberty concerns, has led to a major showdown with the city.
Opponents of the ordinance have been fighting it for over a year now and have already paid a heavy price. Last fall, the mayor of Houston subpoenaed 5 pastors' sermons. Their crime? Suing the city for rejecting their petition drive to put the issue on the ballot.
And now LGBT activists have raised close to $3 million in hopes of persuading voters to approve the ordinance.
This is a political movement that is well organized, well funded.
Dr. Stephen Hotze is fundraising to defeat the ordinance.
Houston is ground zero on this. If Houston falls and Texas falls to the homosexual political movement on this issue, the country's gone.
That's because not only is Houston seen as a conservative stronghold, it's one of the last major cities without a non-discrimination ordinance.
We see LGBT sexual orientation, non-discrimination statutes or ordinances coming into existence, and that's where the real game is at.
In recent years, LGBT activists have pushed for more than 200 non-discrimination laws in cities and counties across the country. In most cases, they provide protection for sexual minorities while quietly stripping away protections for people of faith. It's history repeating itself for Pastor Castaño and his congregation, many of whom immigrated from countries known for oppressive regimes.
The dream of coming to America or being an American citizen and having a business and having the freedom to make your choices and religious freedom, it's truly in danger. And people see this as a repetition of what happened in their countries when it all started. And they are concerned and they're praying.
Jesus Guerrero isn't sure what he'll do. if forced to choose between his conscience and the law. David Postma is discouraged by the rapid change and hostility towards his beliefs.
I want to have my freedom of choice to do what is biblical, and that's eroding away.
Historically, Houston's registered voters don't turn out to vote on local issues, but the high stakes surrounding this one may just change their minds. Reporting in Houston, Heather Sells, CBN News.
And as I told you earlier, that vote is happening today. We'll bring you the very latest on the outcome at cbnnews.com. Up next, your favorite technology could be messing with your mind. We'll explain what's behind a new phenomenon called digital amnesia. We can all probably agree technology makes our lives a lot easier, but do you ever wonder if our dependence on it could actually be messing with our minds? Caleb Kinchlow, our social media and technology contributor, and I did some digging, and researchers now say it is. It's giving us something called digital amnesia. Take a look.
An epidemic is sweeping the globe.
If my phone is dead, I'm dead.
Driving in our desire for convenience, efficiency, and instant gratification.
Starting route to the Twilight Zone.
You may have it and not even know it.
I can't get anywhere without my GPS.
Digital amnesia. Welcome to the Twilight Zone.
I think you mean digital download.
Okay, that too.
And as Ephraim just said, today we're talking about digital amnesia. And if you use any kind of device, the chances are you're infected. And it's not just a problem for young people. New numbers show people of all ages are outsourcing work intended for our brains to technology.
Watch what happened. We asked random people how many phone numbers they actually knew from memory.
I know my cell phone and maybe like my dad's and my close relatives, that's about it.
2, 3, like 2.
We also found the search for information has been reduced to one word.
Google it.
Sure, technology makes our lives easier, which isn't always a bad thing. But experts say we should consider unplugging and thinking from time to time.
What this is doing to our brains is it's keeping us from forming those muscle memories. It's why a lot of kids today are struggling in school because they can't even answer conceptual questions because they spend so much time, on some sort of device, just plugging everything in.
We're also finding out that people are losing that face-to-face contact and not reading the cues, the nonverbal cues of the face and the body that are so critical for what we would call emotional intelligence, where you're trying to read other people, understand what's going on in the moment.
Have no fear. If you think you have digital amnesia, there are ways you can get better.
Of course, and ironically, we found a couple of apps to help you cut back on your tech time. One is called Moment. It tracks how much you use your phone each day and sets limits for you. You can even force yourself off the app if you go over your limit. A similar app is called Break Free. It gives you what is called an addiction score and helps you learn how bad the problem is and gives you tools to, well, break free.
Or you know what, there's always just putting the device away and enjoying life.
Yeah, I guess that works too. Well, I'm Caleb Kinchlow.
And I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is your digital download. But some of us just don't want to unplug, and we don't want to know. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Superbook is airing on Bulgarian national television. It's been doing so for the last year, and recently 2 Superbook events were held in northern Bulgaria, where more than 200 children attended the event, watched Superbook episodes with their parents. Afterwards, many children accepted Christ as their Savior, and they were invited along with their parents to an area Sunday school service. Now, you can always find out more about what CBN is doing around the world by logging on to cbn.com/international. Well, it is time now for your Tuesday Tweetable. In my morning meditation, this thought came to my mind. I can be calm in the center of crisis because Christ rests at the center of my heart. He is my fixer. no Pope and Associates needed. And I must never lose sight of that thought. It encouraged me. I pray it will bless you. And feel free to post, tag, tweet, and share it with others. Keep smiling and make this a terrific Tuesday. That is going to do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. You can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care most about at cbnnews.com. Take the time to tell us what you think about the stories you've seen here today. We would love to hear from you. Hope you join us again right here next time. Once again, make this a terrific Tuesday. We will see you tomorrow.